are these people?
Jason Hickel, he's a professor, college professor, wrote an article that I thought was also really interesting, reminding people that no, Israel is not a democracy. The only democracy in the Middle East is not a democracy. More than 11 million people are denied the right to vote for the government that controls their territory. So how can you call that a democracy exactly? Okay. He starts off by saying that U.S. politicians like to say that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, but it's not. Not by a long shot. In fact, it functions as one of the most undemocratic countries in the world. Israel exercises total control over the West Bank and Gaza. These territories have no actual sovereignty. The West Bank, with 3 million people, is subjected to military occupation, which is illegal under international law, let's not forget. And as for Gaza, which had 2.1 million people, now we think it's down to as many as 1.5 maybe, is also under military occupation, according to international law, as Israel maintains direct control over its airspace, its coast, and its land borders, controlling everything that goes in and out. How is that not an occupation? They'll deny that they occupy them. The 5.1 million people living in these territories do not have the right to vote over the government that determines virtually everything about their lives. And their basic human rights under international law are unenforced and regularly violated with impunity. On top of this, there are another 6 million Palestinians who've been forcibly removed from Palestine and who exist as stateless refugees with no rights within their homeland whatsoever. So what's going on here? Well, apartheid. Many people get hung up on the apartheid analogy because when they think of apartheid in South Africa, they think of segregation and unequal rights among citizens, and they say this sort of thing doesn't happen in Israel. It does. But this is known as petty apartheid, and it was only a minor part of the apartheid system in South Africa. The real action, grand apartheid, had much bigger designs, and this is where the analogy is strongest. Grand apartheid was the process of reshaping territorial boundaries and citizenship. The idea was to forcibly remove the African population from the majority of the country's territory, literally bulldozing their houses and loading them into trucks, does it sound familiar, and dump them onto tiny fragmented chunks of land called Bantustans. Now, then you put a border around each Bantustan, give people citizenship there, give it a flag and a coat of arms, and set up a parliament. Taking this approach, ethnic cleansing, the apartheid regime shoved most of the African population into enclaves comprising just 13% of the land and denied them any rights of citizenship within the white territory. Now you could consider to replace white with Jewish. White people justified this by saying Africans had rights in their own countries, the Bantustans. But of course, the Bantustans were fake. They had no real power, no economic sovereignty, no independent militaries, etc. The apartheid regime controlled their borders and trade. Israel was established in 1948, the very same year the apartheid regime was established in South Africa, and has followed the grand apartheid playbook chapter and verse. The Nakba began the process of shoving Palestinians off their land, out of their homes, and either into the enclaves that today form Gaza and the West Bank. Those are the stands where 5.1 million people live within borders Israel controls, or into neighboring countries like Jordan and Egypt and Lebanon and Syria, where 6 million Palestinians live as stateless refugees. The process of ethnic cleansing continues today. And of course, what's the result? More than 11 million people, again, that's just Palestinians, are hived off from the realm of rights within their own territory and deny the right to vote for the government that controls it. Minority rule by Zionists is declared by democratic. They declare it democratic only because it excludes the majority of the population. calling this democracy is an extraordinary farce. There's no democracy within apartheid. Apartheid must be abolished. The 11 million must be free to return to their land and homes. Their homes don't exist anymore, but at least their land, and must enjoy full rights of citizenship within a fully democratic polity, including the right to vote for the people who govern them. That's a democracy. It also bears noting that while the U.S. liberal discourse implies that they want to see democracy in the Middle East, nothing could be further from the truth. For the past 60 years, the U.S. has propped up authoritarian regimes in the region in order to maintain its interests, has sought to crush liberation movements for struggling for democracy. As Samir Amin pointed out, the U.S. and Israel actively reject genuine democracies in the region because democratic Arab countries would quickly tip the balance of power in favor of the Palestinian cause. Hey, how about that? That's amazing. The claim that Israel is an apartheid state is not a fringe opinion. Every major human rights organization has taken this position, from Amnesty International to Human Rights Watch, which both also have their own issues. And in 2024, the ICJ issued an opinion stating that Israel is in violation of Article 3 of CERD, which condemns and prohibits racial segregation and apartheid. Israel is an apartheid regime. Apartheid is recognized as a crime against humanity in the Rome Statute of the ICC, and it must be abolished. But Israel runs the world, so apparently that's not going to happen right now, maybe, but I don't know why we shouldn't be fighting for it. And I think some of us and a lot of us are marching in the streets of New York City and saying, don't cancel NATO is not necessarily the way to do it. Right? Hands off NATO! Hands off! Well, wait, hands off Medicare. Yes. Hands off all the things we will never fight for. That's what the Democrats are saying. Right?
Yeah.
This one.
Taking ketamine? Because I think it could really help you.
Thank you, Shelly.
What?
Left Voice is another Indie Media Award honoree. And Otto Force is one of my more favorite writers over there. He and Wolfgang Mendelbaum wrote an article that quotes Netanyahu.
Wolfgang Mendelbaum.
That quotes Netanyahu.
Names are funny.
And this is why I brought this. It was really just for the headline. We'll read the article, but it was really just for the headline that Netanyahu said that Gaza will be Israeli or it will not cease. It will not exist. He continues his plan to annex Gaza. Again, with
how about new?
Yeah, except that this is why Miriam.
Crazy Dutch bastard.
No, he's an Israeli bastard with Polish background, but
close enough.
This is
close enough to Dutch.
This is what Miriam Adelson paid for to get Donald Trump as president, and the deal that Donald Trump made was to allow them to completely annex Gaza and the West Bank. So Netanyahu is making plans to annex Gaza, supported by a new circle of ministers, monsters, and advisors, even more extreme than the previous ones, determined to wage war until Hamas and the enclave itself are completely eliminated, except that we've seen the military assessments that say that you will never get rid of Hamas. Never. Because what will happen is the rest of the world you can't eliminate Hamas everywhere else around the world. You can't bomb every hotel that somebody that might be Palestinian and supporting that cause. Or maybe they will, but I don't think they can.
Ugh.
You could outlaw religion and most of these sex crimes would disappear in a couple of generations. But we don't have time for rational solutions.
Church of Carlin, it's Sunday. It's Sunday, folks. We got to go to church. So, Otto and
Wolfgang, sex crimes in Israel. Who showed
Otto,
up there?
Right?
Who showed up recently?
Rusty Rockets, baby. He's got those rusty rockets. He's
Andrew Tate, soon to follow.
Rape charges and Israeli trips go together like peanut butter and jelly.
Go together. You got sex crimes in my Israel. You got Israel by sex crime.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, fucking what a disgusting world we live in.
One week after the resumption of the genocide in Gaza, the death toll is catastrophic. Nearly 800 dead, including a large number of children. I saw another headless one them running down the street today, blurred out.
Yeah, I know, dude. Fucking just awful.
And they'll deny all this.
Yep.
Access to humanitarian aid has been completely cut off for more than 3 weeks. The IOF are bombing hospitals and homes and civilian infrastructure. On Monday, Israel announced that it had attacked more than 100 pickup trucks under the pretext that they could be used by the Al-Qassam brigades. With the resumption of negotiations stalled and the imperialist powers continuing to openly support Israel's massacres in the enclave, the future looks bleaker than ever for Gazans. The new Army Chief of Staff, Eyal Zamir, remember that name? He's the new
Beelzebub?
He's the new Gallant. He said that he wants to complete what Israel has been trying to do since October 2023, eliminate any Hamas presence in Gaza. This means an escalation of indiscriminate bombing and the systemic destruction of civilian infrastructure, whatever is left. But above all, this goal is now compounded by the threat of an unprecedented military deployment. An unprecedented military deployment because there's so much there for them to worry about. According to the Wall Street Journal, plans for a massive ground invasion have been drawn up and could be implemented very quickly. The army has already regained control of the Netzarim corridor and is conducting incursions into Gaza City and the northern Gaza Strip in an effort to expand its buffer zone. That's a nice way to say its murder zone. It's also present in Rafah, Khan Yunis, as well as the Tel Asutran refugee camp, which is surrounded by the IOF after a massive bombardment that left more than 50 dead. And this week we saw bombings in Rafah and Khan Yunis. The goal is to smother Hamas, quote unquote, by occupying large swaths of territory and maintaining a significant military presence there, leaving it nowhere to retreat, choking it off everywhere they can. In earlier phases of the quote-unquote war, you mean the massacre, the army typically withdrew after capturing an area, giving Hamas the ability to reestablish itself. This time, the goal is to gradually reduce any room for maneuver, eliminating each pocket of resistance piecemeal. This would be accompanied by a gradual and systemic destruction of Hamas's entire tunnel network. Secret tunnels that a lot of which Israel built.
Shit.
By the way, I noticed they didn't mention that.
Secret tunnel.
This exclusively military strategy risks being rejected by the Israeli opposition and a large segment of public opinion, which would initially prefer a political solution, that is, the resumption of negotiations to secure the release of the remaining hostages and a ceasefire, even if it means resuming the war to settle the Palestinian problem. Wow, that sounds a lot like what they used to call the...
That sounds like a final solution.
A J problem, right?
The Palestinian problem that requires a fucking...
Modern problems require modern solutions.
But the new war council,
final ones, apparently,
centered around Israel Katz, that's another one of the names you need to know. I believe he replaced Ben Gvir, and Eyal Zamir is taking a much more radical line than the previous one, which already was extremist.
Pretty fucking radical, right?
According to them, the quote-unquote defeat of Hezbollah, the fall of the Assad regime, and the fact that the Houthis are facing incessant U.S. bombing now gives them... Thanks, U.S. Now gives them free hand to achieve what they want, what they have so far failed to accomplish, the total elimination of Hamas, which, of course, the U.S. intelligence community has said they'll never be able to do. Along the same lines, the IDF has intensified its strategy of targeting senior Hamas political staff. Now, it's funny how they haven't even mentioned a civilian death in all this. This is just about their intention.
Just say
about
seniors.
Right? Right.
You know?
Since the resumption of the genocide.
Citizens, that's who they plan on targeting.
Several central figures in the Gaza government have already been eliminated, including the enclave's prime minister, Hussam al-Dalish, as well as his presumed successor, Ismail Barhoum. Also killed were the justice minister, the interior minister, the finance minister, and the head of Hamas's security agency, Sinwar.
Yeah, we killed him, but trust us, this guy was horrid.
Right. So, but they should negotiate. They've killed all the people they negotiate with. Anyone who comes to negotiate ends up dead.
And pray I don't alter the deal further.
Right. But beyond the cabinet rhetoric, the plan, as Haaretz reported Friday, aims for the total occupation of Gaza, accompanied by the establishment of an Israeli military administration modeled on the one in force between 67 and 94. One of its central missions would be to organize the expulsion of the entire Gazan population in accordance with the ethnic cleansing plan promoted by Donald Trump. Yes, promoted by Donald Trump. Initially, Gaza's 2 million inhabitants would be confined to a small humanitarian quote unquote zone, which of course they continuously bomb.
Yes.
Where food aid would never exceed the minimum calories necessary for their survival. That's called a starvation plus diet, and Israel's had Palestinians on that for the past 2 decades already. The aim? Israel's full annexation of Gaza. As L'Orient de Le Jour summarizes,
Nazis. I hate these guys.
Before Israel Katz, no Israeli official had gone so far with regard to Gaza. There were threats to destroy it, depopulate it, occupy it, which was done, but never to annex it. The taboo has fallen. Gaza will be Israeli or it will not exist. However, before he can carry out his project, Netanyahu will have to deal with a series of contradictions. Israel's mired in an unprecedented internal crisis, compounded by a major political crisis. 73% of Israelis want the prime minister to resign, a figure that has increased since his attempt to remove the Shin Bet chief. Meanwhile, a mutiny of reservists is underway. Exhausted by the war, many now refuse to continue living the horrors of Gaza. 18 months of genocide, just too much for them. The project of totally eradicating Gaza is possible thanks to the unconditional support Netanyahu enjoys, first from the Biden and then the Trump administrations, but also from the European powers, which support and shamelessly participate in the genocide, especially the spy flights that Keir Starmer has been promoting and providing, likely free of charge.
Yep, accurate.
The cynical refrain, repeated ad nauseum, of, quote, Israel's right to defend itself, unquote, finds its logical conclusion here, the realization of genocide and annexation. And this was originally published at the end of March in La Izquierda Diario, which is the Argentinian version, the Left Diary. That's what La Izquierda Diario stands for. Left Voice, again.
Better say Free Palestine.
That's right. Indie Media Award honoree, Free Palestine, you bet. I will say it. This speaks for itself. Targets.
Ugh. Yep.
Had to bring that. I saw it and I'm like, oh, Red Crescent, press, babies, mothers, grandmothers.
Mothers. Yeah.
Targets.
Free Palestine.
And we get to Rafah, which is now completely laid to waste. Rafah in southern Gaza before and after U.S.-made bombs paid by American taxpayers and non-taxpayers, paid by American citizens and were dropped by Zionist terrorists on Palestinian natives. You are all complicit in this genocide. We all are.
Are we the baddies?
Yep.
That's the same main road.
I remember when Rafah was a red line. I remember that.
That's the same main road.
Yep. It's fucking crazy.
Fuck Joe Biden. Fuck Blinken. Fuck Sullivan. Fuck all these people that did this. Kamala Harris. And of course, Netanyahu and all the Israeli genocidal fucking maniacs. That still, this isn't even enough for them. They want more. They're going to escalate the attack even more because this isn't enough. These fucking lunatics, monsters.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, we talked about the Red Crescent workers and the horrifying story that happened to them. 15 of them murdered by Israel after going and trying to recover, and then Israel shooting at the people trying to recover their bodies, that they had buried the rescue trucks. And now we have cell phone footage from one of the aid workers as they're being fired upon. 45
Lights
seconds.
on the entire time.
This is horrific. I'm sorry to do
Clearly
this.
marked. Ambulance insignia.
They're lying around scattered. They're everywhere.
There's no God but God.
Gunshots are heard for a full 5 minutes on the video.
Correct.
Saeed Mohammed Morandi.
But they said they were acting suspiciously, these ambulances.
Just
Then they rescinded that, said they made a mistake. Oopsies. Oopsie
just
poopsies.
another Israeli lie that they won't be held accountable for. Just another Monday.
No.
And then we have Abu Bakr.
You can't handle the truth.
Israel has bombed the gate of Al-Aqsa Hospital. I don't even know what that looks like at this point because they've already bombed it how many times?
Yeah. It's tense.
Killing 2 people and wounding others. The 2 are my cousin and his child.
Alhamdulillah.
These motherfuckers.
Well,
This is a 21-year-old kid. This is a 22-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Having to
And
deal
then they
with...
bombed the journalist tent.
Yep.
I had to watch a man burned alive today. Again.
Now, I also wanted to mention Abu Bakr posted the other day about food prices. If they're even available per kilogram, $7 for tomatoes. We're not even paying $7.
Yep.
$8 eggplant. $90 a kilogram for meat or fish.
$30 a liter for oil is what the Intifada article had this week.
$11 a kilogram for rice. I mean, that's a basic staple. Right. And they're running out of it, by the way, if you can find it.
$1.43 at Walmart.
And you need to pay in cash to afford this, which means the prices are doubled.
Yeah. Doubled. Yep. So,
and they continue to not let the aid trucks in, and then gaslight and say that they are letting aid trucks in, and that they don't know what you're talking about because aid trucks are flowing in. What do you mean?
They've not had water drinkable forever. You know, it's been like 97% undrinkable water for like
weeks,
a decade now.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Well, yes.
So, yeah, I know.
Again, it's been 100 days since the abduction of Dr. Hussam Abu Safiya. All right. And this was on April 6th. So that was today. Let this man go. But I meant to bring this last week. It was actually came out last Saturday. Reef, you shared this. Dr. Hussam's lawyer, he was denied legal representation for over 45 days, brutally beaten during interrogations, suffering broken ribs and severe injuries, and held in solitary for weeks. Israeli authorities had allegedly tortured him to extract confessions and fabricate a security case. And now he is going to be held for another 6 months.
Who's done access for more than 45 days. After these 45 days ended, the prison administration started making, I missed that. I'll go back a bit and catch up. Started making excuses. Of course they did.
They said the earliest available
appointment.
Beginning of March.
Beginning of March. They also delayed the visit for some time.
Second visit
was
March 19th.
Was on the 19th. Yep.
That lasted 17 minutes. It was clear there was a decision or obstinacy from the prison authorities that they did not want us to sit with him for a longer period. However, during these 17 minutes, we still managed to discuss all the violations, his entire interrogation period, and all the torture he was subjected to. Unfortunately, what I understood from him is that when he was held at State Haman military camp, where he stayed for about 14 days, he underwent between 4 to 5 interrogations. During these interrogations, he was severely beaten by a group of soldiers who unfortunately assaulted him even while being transferred. Even on his way to interrogation, he was beaten. On his way to clinic, he was beaten. Unfortunately, they broke about 3 or 4 of his ribs in the chest area.
Jesus Christ.
He was punched hard in the eye, causing an injury. He was also placed in solitary for a period until he was transferred to Ophir prison. In Ophir prison, he stayed for 25 days in solitary in a cell measuring
solitary.
Solitary, right, in 1.5 meters by 1 meter. Wow, that's like a 3 by 4.5. That's like a literal, like you could barely move.
It's a fucking box, right?
There, too, he was subjected to severe beatings and psychological pressure to the extent that his body became physically exhausted. He was physically drained to the point where the prison administration forced to bring in doctors to treat him. He underwent several interrogations inside military camps and prisons. These interrogations were conducted by the Army or intelligence services. They were extremely harsh on him during the interrogations. He was subjected to severe mistreatment. One of the main reasons for this mistreatment was that he openly challenged the system. He refused to evacuate Kamal Adwan Hospital. They wanted to make an example of him. They aimed to intimidate the rest of the detainees throughout and to send a message that anyone who dares challenge them or even thinks of defying them and refusing to obey their orders and those in the army, that is the fate that awaits them. They tried to turn his case into an ordinary security file to charge him with an indictment, and they were hoping to extract confessions from him, which is also very important to him, is the issue of medical staff, medical teams, the doctors, the wounded. He's always been and remains, this has always been the people and the patients, one of his top priorities.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's not alone. He's not the only doctor detained in prisons. We have hundreds of medical professionals,
nurses, surgeons,
detained inside Israeli prisons and Israeli military camps. He's only one. They were taken from inside Gaza, from hospitals.
Yep.
Now we're going to get into just by the numbers, because I really like Steve Semler. And I believe this is a free article where he breaks down Israel's war on aid workers. All right. This was from the other day. Polygraph.substack, StephenSemler.com, Semler. He's, again, good analytics numbers guy, just looks at the raw numbers. All right. And what he said was that by the numbers, let's look at the war on workers, on aid workers. If this incident generates enough public backlash, Israel will claim without credible evidence that the aid workers were our militants. What a surprise. For now, its excuse is that the ambulances were advancing suspiciously toward IDF troops. And that the Guardian, per the Guardian, the movement of the ambulances had not been coordinated with the IDF in advance. Right. Okay. But the Israeli military stopped acknowledging notifications through the humanitarian notification system, the process by which aid workers alert warring parties of their intended movements so they don't get shot at during the ceasefire.
Yeah, who owns that? Peter Thiel?
Right. Israel's intent with this move was clear: deny Palestinians life-saving aid by making the risk of carrying out humanitarian operations too high, and it worked. Save the Children, for example, scaled back its operations in Gaza by 80% after Israel withdrew from the system. The Israeli military's systematic killing of aid workers serves the same objective. Per a former colleague of mine in the humanitarian sector, quote, the targeting of healthcare workers is deliberate. Israel wants to diminish the aid response capacity so organizations of their own accord stop working. See also making conditions so intolerable that Palestinians self-deport. This might sound familiar. There is also plenty of forensic evidence to support these comments, and the numbers on humanitarian worker deaths speak for themselves. He says, since October 23, I estimate that Israel has killed about twice as many aid workers, 426, as the rest of the world combined, according to my analysis of data from the Aid Worker Security Database, cross-referenced with media and other reports. During that stretch, Israel killed humanitarian workers in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, and Yemen, and injured at least 3 aid workers in Syria, in addition to the 164 it wounded elsewhere from October 23 to April of this year. Share the following chart on social media and you'll likely get a comment along the lines of aid workers are terrorists, parroting an apartheid state's genocidal logic. And remember, we just read about what an apartheid state Israel is. One that turns international law and morality on its head is certainly a choice. One that the commentator had plenty of time to think about as they painstakingly mashed their sweaty, clunky, inbred fingers onto the keyboard to churn out that vile remark. Would have been easier for them to just keep quiet. And here are the numbers. 640 aid workers, 426 from Israel alone, 217 by the rest of the world, which is still gross.
Yeah.
Okay. The methodology is that, and you can read about it there. I'm not going to get into reading it, but bottom line is Israel has killed 426 aid workers in addition to the 208 journalists, in addition to blah, 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 in addition to the scholars, the teachers, the dentists, the everything else that they've murdered in addition. But specifically, aid workers. Literally, systematically attacking the healthcare system. Thus, concludes our Fuck Israel segment for the evening, thankfully. Sort of. I mean, of course, everything has the looming overshadow of Israel funding all of it. And we'll get to Zionist Bitcoin.
You motherfuckers.
We'll get to Zionist Bitcoin, Golden Monarch in a little while. Because I know Golden Monarch going, fucking Zionist Bitcoin. That's his thing. Well, before saying fuck Israel.
Acquisition is greed is eternal.
Yes, we know. The Ferengis. The Israelis, these Ferengis, which is which. Anyway, Dana Saeed, we know her, we love her, she's fantastic. Support and follow her. This is also interesting. The Israeli military is one of Microsoft AI's biggest clients, with that relationship deepening during some of the worst Israeli bombardment of Gaza during this genocide. This is a Muslim Microsoft employee calling out the CEO of Microsoft AI, who is a British Syrian, not Muslim. Mustafa Soleiman, may your name never be forgotten, and may the blood on your hands of Palestinians forever stain your skin. So Microsoft employee disrupts 50th anniversary and calls AI boss a war profiteer.
50,000 people have died, and Microsoft powers this genocide in our region.
Thank you for your protest. I hear you.
Your Syrian family know about this, Mustafa.
I hear your protest. Thank you.
Yeah, slap those papers.
You are a war profiteer.
Stop
using AI for genocide, Mustafa. Stop using AI for genocide in our region. You have blood on your hands. All of Microsoft has blood on its hands. How do you all celebrate when Microsoft is killing children? Shame us all.
Thank you. I hear your protest. Thank you. Okay.
I hear you.
I hear your protest, and I'm going to do absolutely nothing about it.
I
Thank
hear
you.
you.
Thank you. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Shame.
That belonged there.
Shame.
Shame. Shame.
Shame.
Yeah. Nice job, lady. Absolutely. Yes, Cookies. I agree. She did a hell of a job. I wanted to bring that. That there are brave people working in these organizations standing up. Now, she's worked there for how long? And I don't know how silent she's been, but he walked into that meeting. She was invited to that meeting. They didn't think that she would be a problem to invite her to that meeting. She chose that moment to stand up, which I appreciate.
I hear you.
But at the same time,
I see you.
how long was there silence before that? Again, she's Muslim,
Yeah.
and I can't really. I'm not trying to pass judgment. I'm not, but your protest doesn't increase my portfolio. That fuck that fuckwad. That's right. Yep.
We're sorry. We're sorry.
We're so sorry.
That's all you're gonna get. That's what you're gonna get.
Sorry.
That is that the coffee? Is that when the coffee company moves into South Park? That's one of my favorite episodes.
No, that's the BP episode.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah, we're sorry for ruining your environment, right?
We're sorry.
So
We're sorry.
for saying shit like that, we get demonetized. That's why we ask you to please support the media you want to see and fund the media you want to see.
Do it.
With a Cash App at $Indie News Network if you're so inclined and you have the means and you find some bucks between the couch or you digitally find a couple dollars. Ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. That does help. INNnewsletter.com is the way to stay in touch with the network on a daily basis. Support independent media, kids. We need it more than ever. Love you all.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Mwah. Ciao, baby.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
Can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? And now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. No, I play civil when all these dead won't make you listen. What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? God, I thought we were founded on abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. See, I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me.